We're back with episode 5 of the Step Through, a weekly show talking about the WNBA with myself, Sabreena Merchant, and Evin Gualberto. Evin, it's been a month. Can you believe it?
No, I cannot.
No.
That's it.
This little project of ours that we have started has made it to 5 episodes, so it's very exciting. Thank you all for listening and following along. It's been just a really good time talking about the W. I do want to shout out Jasmine Baker this week because a couple weeks back she coined the term the Women's National Buzzer Beater Association when the WNBA was having its just parade of, Jewel Lloyd and Enrique and everybody having their good time hitting buzzer beaters. And this week she coined the term the Women's No BS Association, which I think is an appropriate way of describing this past week in the W. Where, to be fair, the games were not as drama-filled as they might have been a couple weeks ago. But the league itself was definitely having a moment. Evin, did you enjoy the Twitter happenings on Monday in the W?
So I was threading the game that lit Twitter ablaze, and I thought, I should do a video of the move in question that went viral, I guess it didn't go viral. The reaction to it went viral. So I thought it was a great move, but I didn't think it was worth getting all upset about. So yeah. I don't know how to feel about it.
All I'm going to say is that Brittney Griner's reaction, tremendous. I know we talked a couple episodes back about how Brittney's clearly having fun again. Whew, having a good time with Skylar Diggins-Smith as her teammate. And I kind of just fall in the Sydney Colson camp of all of this. Like, if you get your ankles broken, you have to live with getting your ankles broken. And that is how Brittney reacted. That's how Skylar reacted. And Liberty get their win. So everybody is happy as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. Whoa. No, I got nothing. I just, yeah, when you get got, that's it. That's
it. Yeah. It is kind of nice that the W has set aside a day, of rest so everyone can just get online and talk about the league so that there are no games on Mondays. But anyway, we could probably just move on to the things that caught our eye on the basketball court this week. And first of all is a team that we've talked about quite a bit, but just bears re-mentioning because they are just lighting the league on fire right now, and that is the Las Vegas Aces. The Storm actually set a record this week with their 8th not a record, but like a league high mark with their 8th double-digit win. And all I can do is just look at the Aces just clowning the Liberty by 49 points over 2 games and putting up 100 points in back-to-back contests. And I understand like the Liberty play very fast pace and not one of the better defenses, but I am consistently amazed at the Las Vegas Aces leading the league in offensive rating and not taking threes. How do they keep doing it, Evan?
I don't even know at this point, like, what it is they do besides have their twin towers. They run their floppy, they run their UCLA, they run that high-low. But, like, how they get to the total they get to consistently doing just that is, like, it breaks my brain.
It's really impressive. It's just like we got to give Lambier a lot of credit for designing a system that optimizes basically everybody on the team. I mean, so their offensive rating is 108 points per possession currently, and like Indiana's is 92. So there's a gap between top and bottom in the league, and they're even 5 points clear of the Connecticut Sun, who are widely considered, one of the primo contenders in the league and who have beaten the Aces twice already this season. So that's a significant amount of separation they're creating on the offensive end, which I don't think is the side that I associate more with the Aces. When I think about the Aces, I think about them as a team that can just hound you on the defensive end. And yet we're looking at them just throwing up video game numbers really in these games. And nowhere was that more clear than Kelsey Plum putting up 32 points off the bench the other day. You look this up, that was what, like 4th most by a bench player in WNBA history?
Yes, I believe so. So I texted you with the numbers because we were trying to figure out where the records were for these things, and
yes,
pretty difficult to find. But what we found was that DeWanna Bonner had 38, and then the next two were Angel McCoughtry with 36 and 34. Unfortunately, it cuts off there. So there might be somebody with 33. I don't know. That's lost to history.
What I don't understand is who these head coaches are that are keeping DeWanna Bonner and Angel McCoughtry on the bench. What's happening here? How many teams has Bill Laimbeer coached in WNBA history?
I can tell you, which this makes what Kelsey did much more impressive, is that DeWanna scored her 38 in a triple overtime game. So extra shouts to Angel and Kelsey for doing what they did in regulation.
So Kelsey just came back from 3-on-3, right? And yes. I know you and I had talked about how we thought maybe she should be in the starting lineup because of how seamless that pairing between her and Chelsea Gray seems to be, and also the fact that Raquana Williams is just seems like the primo candidate for a sixth woman of the year. Obviously not on this team because Dearica Hamby exists, but Raquana likes coming off the bench is the point. But still, Kelsey's coming off the bench, and it's crazy to me because she is the all-time leading scorer in NCAA women's basketball history, and she literally can score any way she wants to. You've got a team with Asia Wilson, Liz Cambage, Chelsea, like we've mentioned all of their talent. And I think the most fun I have watching this team is just when they put the ball in Plum's hands and let her work. Like we were talking about this before we got on air. She can literally do everything, right, Evin?
There's just especially the 32-point night, put back, crossover right hand layup, just mid-range, just off the dribble three, which is, you know, as modern as the Aces offense is going to get, really. Just backdoor, any type of way. She comes off of the floppy set. If you watch the show last week, I talked about that floppy blind pig / backdoor step action that the Storm run. The Aces run it too. They ran it for Kelsey, and, you know, she did it in every kind of way. And again, it breaks my brain because I don't really know how the Aces do it. And just the same way, I don't really know how Kelsey does it. She just gets to a spot and then she's pulling. Her release is lightning quick, especially off the dribble. And if she's going to make her right-handed layups on the right and her pull-ups on the right side, you can't really do anything because you're taking away her strong hand, and now she's killing you. Like, I don't.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy to watch her with her right because nothing about that suggests that that's her weekend. And there's just a couple of sets where I was watching where, you know, she enters the ball into Liz in the post and they're trying to single cover Liz, and you can't even like bring a double because then you're just leaving Kelsey one pass away as a 3-point shooter. And I know we said that the Vegas Aces don't really take threes, but like Kelsey's still shooting 40% on threes. Like that's not a person you can leave open. And especially not if you're going to give her that clean of a look if you double Liz. So there's so many actions on this team that just seem relatively unguardable to me when they're working correctly.
Right.
And it's just silly to think that like you have your 5 starters, you have your 6th woman in Dearica, and then you have Kelsey Plum. Like that's just an insane level of talent that is populating this roster.
Yeah, so it begs the question, is Bill secretly a genius? Well, I mean, yes, you know, there are only a handful of WNBA coaches, and he is one of them. So, let me roll that back. But I'm flustered already thinking about this. The question, I guess, then becomes like, if you have your 5 for the Aces, your best 5, can they play together? And I think the answer is yes, absolutely. So Hamby, Wilson, Cambage, Gray, Plum. Like that's the five, and they all fit together. But in games like these, and I think you'll see hopefully more experimentation as the season goes on, is you can mix and match. And so Kelsey is playing starter-ish minutes since she's been back, and Raquan Williams, the game where Kelsey went off for 32, she played 12 and a half minutes. So she's nominally the starter, but Kelsey's playing the bulk of those minutes anyway. So I think that's good. It's going to be interesting if Bill actually decides, why don't we just start them together? I don't know the answer, but the Aces continue to be intriguing for just every type of reason.
Yeah, it's the kind of thing where, we've seen the Aces change their lineup in the playoffs 2 seasons in a row, where Kelsey Plum was a 6th woman in the 2019 regular season and then started against the Mystics in the playoffs. And then last year, Lindsay Allen was a starter at point guard for most of the year. And then Danielle Robinson takes that spot in the playoffs. And you wonder why they had to wait until the postseason to make that kind of change. But if you can get those minutes out of other players during the regular season, save your legs, generate more depth, and it's obviously not hurting them from a win-loss perspective, like, I guess why not? But the thing is, like you mentioned, their best 5-person lineup, and I'm honestly of the belief that, like, maybe it's better if you have Jackie Young in Hamby's place. Like, there's options, in case you're playing a team that's a little bit smaller, a little bit faster, or I don't think that there's an instance where you wouldn't want to play Cambage Wilson, but, like, once again, the Hamby Wilson lineup is just crushing teams. So there's just a lot of options to work with. And I mean, I'm just, there's like a very clear top tier to me for the W, and just the Aces are just so much better than most of the teams in the league right now. It's crazy to me, like, how stacked that roster is without Angel McCoughtry. And, like, they don't even miss Kayla McBride, who I thought was, like, really important for them the last few years, just as the one spacer who could let the rest of them play 4-on-4 in the half court. And, like, who cares that she's not there right now? It's amazing.
Yeah. So it's also the value that Kelsey brings is that the second game against the Liberty, she had 18 points, which is obviously not as much as 32, but 7 assists compared to the 2. So she is generating offense regardless of, like, she's finding a way to get it done. And whether that's because of the baseball style 2 games in a row series that the Liberty and the Aces just played, the Liberty said, no, not again. We're not gonna give up 30 off the bench to Kelsey Plum. Maybe that was the adjustment. We'll live with her beating us, and she did. And, well, we'll live with her beating us to the tune of, like, 76-103.
I don't think the Liberty really had much say in this. Let's put that out there.
No, not at all. I apologize.
I mean, that's what you get when you have, 3 straight number 1 picks populating your lineup there with Plum and Wilson and Young. I mean, not all number 1 picks are created equal, but Kelsey Plum is no slouch. And there's a reason she was taken number 1 in that draft. And there's a reason why, the Mystics were terrified of them in that 2019 semifinal series. So this is a really, really solid team that has been building, steadily over the last 3 years, ever since they got Liz. And if this is their peak, like, hell yeah, this is an absolutely worthy peak to be building towards.
Right. And that's the value of not necessarily saying that it was a good thing that Liz sat out that bubble year, because as we talked about last week, it's a joy to have everyone back. But now you know how lethal that front court combo of Wilson Hamby is, and you can go to that. And Dearica is as good a 4 as I think she's a better 4 than she is a 3, honestly.
Yeah.
But when you have those 2 up there, there's no. But you can, the fact that you can play Asia at the 5, and you can cycle through, or you have Liz there and you have Hamby. It just the growth they experienced in the bubble, and then you add Liz Cambage back. I would love to get through the entire season healthy, because the Aces are, as you said, like, they are top tier. And as you said again, they're not just beating teams, they are clowning teams. And that is, I think that has some sort of psychological value. Like, it's warfare against the rest of the league, really. So
yeah. And just one last thing on Kelsey before we move on. I mean, it's just hard to overstate the fact that she's doing this after tearing her Achilles a year ago. I mean, she was another player who missed the entire bubble season because she was hurt, and like all she did is just rehab and come back and qualify for an Olympic berth with 3-on-3, and now just wrecking teams again with the Aces. Between her and Stewie, like, it's kind of incredible that the Achilles is like not the death knell it used to be in terms of like just wrecking careers. So thank goodness she looks like she did before, because again, like, the Aces are incredibly deep, but I feel like they need all of these pieces to be as overwhelming as they are.
Right. Yeah. Nothing more to add.
Yeah, well, speaking of a team that we kind of expected to be overwhelming at the start of the season and didn't look like that, the Chicago Sky, they have now won 4 in a row. And the reason for that, I think, is pretty clear. It's return of one Candace Parker. Allie Quigley is also back in higher minutes roles, also makes a difference. But let's be clear, the reason that everyone was so high on the Sky heading into the regular season was because they added Candace, who seemingly fulfilled all of their weaknesses of, a little rim protection, an extra ball handler next to Courtney Vandersloot, and just another player who defenses had to focus on. She's back. They've won 4 in a row. Not like a murderer's row of opponents by any means. One of the games was against the Fever. One of them was against the Sun without John Quell. But like, you got to win the games that are in front of you. So, right, I'm not questioning like their bona fides or anything here, but it's great to see Candace back. Just doing all very Candace things. She had this one play at the start of the game against Connecticut where she fakes out Kyla Charles, and Kyla's like looking one way, and then she throws the ball, I believe, to DeShields in the opposite wing, and literally just walks away like before the drive even happens, because she just knows that it's going to result in a bucket. It's like the most disrespectful taunt that she could have done to Connecticut. But yeah, that's just the kind of flair that you miss when Candace Parker is not on the floor. And then she obviously does all of the very simple, beautiful things like her post-ups, or even like setting up inverted post-ups for DeShields, or just, there's so much optionality on the Chicago roster now that you have Candace who can toggle between like being in the perimeter and in the paint, which just didn't exist when you were playing Astu Dufall in that position, or even if Dolson is there, like they just don't have the versatility that she does. So it's great to see Candace back. I'm really excited to see what Chicago looks like against, this top tier that we keep talking about. But for now, very important that they're collecting wins, because they were struggling real hard. I think they lost 7 in a row while Candace was hurt. And they're undefeated with her in the lineup, I should mention.
Yeah, like when we talked about the Sky, we talked about Courtney Vandersloot was overburdened, that you are expecting her to do absolutely everything for you. And you're expecting Diamond DeShields to play more as a creator for others, as opposed to just being able to get downhill and attacking for herself and then making reads from there. Now, things are starting to fit a little better because, well, the floor is a little more spread out because Allie Quigley is back and we all know what she can do from deep. She also provides, if not a secondary, like a tertiary ball handler, so things don't just go down the drain in non-Vandersloot minutes. But Candace Parker brings everything together. She's a playmaker, out of the post, in transition, everywhere. She brings that championship swagger, championship flair, and just sort of ties everything together. And, there were those 2 games against the Fever. You sort of take what you want from those games, but the games after that have been impressive. So excited to see what health brings the Chicago Sky.
One of these days we'll have to talk more about the Fever. This is not one of those weeks, but eventually we will get to talking about the Fever. Maybe when Lauren Cox is more fully part of the rotation. But it's a sucky dichotomy between like the number 1 overall scorer in NCAA history in Kelsey Plum and then the number 2 in Kelsey Mitchell, and where their WNBA careers have landed so far. So yeah, you know, that's all I wanted to talk about Indiana. But yeah, Candace is back. Chicago's undefeated with Candace in the lineup. Question, Evin. We haven't really talked about like potential all-star lineups yet, but we did get the news last week that all-star is happening, right? It's going to be happening in Vegas. I don't know if there was news about a 3-point shootout or a skills challenge yet, which would make me sad because I do love all of the extracurricular nonsense that goes around with the all-star game. How many games do you think Candace would have to play to get on that all-star team?
Woof. Well, considering that she didn't make Team USA when she was the Candace Parker, it would have to be the All-Star. I have no idea because name recognition matters. And so voting, if you're going to vote for players, whether or not you follow the league, you know who Candace Parker is, or at least you should. So is there a number of games you have to play in order to make it if you get voted in? That's more of a question for you. But I don't know. I think if the Sky continue to be successful, and it would help if they continue to go undefeated with Candace Parker in the lineup. I don't know that there is a cap. I think if Candace Parker and the Sky keep rolling, she makes it. Whether or not that's right, I don't know.
Yeah, to me, it just doesn't feel like an all-star weekend without Candace Parker. So
that's true.
I hope it happens. I hope that this ankle thing is behind her.
I just wanted to add, Kathy, if you are listening, because we know you are, that's why we have an all-star game. I don't want to brag, but it is here. So we would like a skills challenge and a 3-point shootout, if possible. Possibly a big skills challenge also, if it's in the cards. But so hi, Kathy. Speaking of All-Star Weekend, let's jump to my segment. Evin asks, Sabreena, I understand nothing about the All-Star game or the format, and I would love to look it up and be wrong in trying to figure it out myself, but you are an expert. I have you here. Could you please explain everything to me?
Yeah, so one of the reasons why we were concerned about the viability of an all-star game this year is because they're having an Olympic break, and the best players are obviously going to be on Team USA or their respective national teams playing in the Olympics, right? So it kind of diminishes the talent pool that you have available for an all-star game. But the WNBA sort of got around that problem by hosting All-Star right before USA's mini camp starts heading into the Olympics. So they have all of the Team USA talent there anyway. And to give Team USA, I guess, another avenue to play together as a team, that will be one of the teams in the All-Star game. It will just be the entire 12-woman USA roster for the Olympic Games. The other 12 players will be selected by some combination of, I think it's 50% fan vote, 25% media vote, and 25% player vote. And out of the top 36 players from that voting process, all of whom, again, are not part of Team USA, the WNBA coaches will select 12 All-Stars from that pool of 36 who will represent the All-Star team that will play against Team USA. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no. If I had seen these just written on a website, I would still be confused. But it makes sense now. Okay.
Yeah, so I mean, there's like an inherent disadvantage, I think, to players who are not of American nationality because admittedly you cannot make Team USA, and thus the pool of all-star spots that you can occupy is a little bit smaller. So, we've talked about Jonquil Jones a lot on this show. There's a lot of other players who have other forms of citizenship. Candace Parker has explicitly said that she will not play for USA basketball anymore, so she's not in the Olympics consideration. So her pool diminishes to just those 12 spots. And then, just all the international players like Liz Cambage or Stephanie Talbot's the first name that's coming to mind here, but Amanda Zahui, Swedish player for the Los Angeles Sparks, all of them unavailable, for the Team USA All-Star team. So they're only eligible for that 12-person pool that the coaches are going to select. And there is a bonus associated with making the All-Star team. So it's not just like an honor that you're missing out on. There's a little prize money that, again, is a little bit harder to get to if you're an international player. But overall, I think because the USA pool that they're going to select is probably going to be 12 All-Stars, like it's not going to be names that you'd think, oh, they wouldn't have been an All-Star had they not been selected to, Team USA. Maybe Diana Taurasi falls into that camp because she's been hurt and wouldn't have been an All-Star, but we're going to select her for Team USA if she's healthy. Like maybe that's a name that sort of breaks the All-Star qualifier. I think it's about as fair as they could have done, just because of the constraints of having to have, the All-Star game around the same time as the USA minicamp. So it's not terrible. And just like the number of international players in the league who are probably deserving of those spots is not as high as it would be in like the NBA. So I don't think it's like that bad of a compromise, but it is a compromise that had to be made just based on the circumstances of this season.
Right. The Mystics are my local team. The player that immediately jumped to mind in a year where there wasn't Eurobasket is Emma Meeson. So she would be somebody who finals MVP, things like that. But there are significantly less great international players participating in this year. So there's that to consider too. You mentioned Amanda Zahui. We can segue into our game of the week. Did Amanda Zahui spark joy for you this week?
We've got a twofer segment this week. This is so exciting, combining spark joy with game of the week. It's funny. You and I had settled on a different game of the week, and then Sparks played the Mercury and sort of just washed our plans away, which I was not expecting because if you follow my coverage of the Sparks, off of this show, Sparks are without a lot of players. They don't have Nneka and Shania Gumuke right now. They don't have Maria Vadeeva, who is missing the first half of the season because of the aforementioned Eurobasket. She was playing for Russia. They don't have their first-round pick, Jasmine Walker, because she tore her ACL in the second game of the season. They were even missing Taya Cooper, who has been starting for them and was suspended for this game against Phoenix. So not a game that I expected the Sparks to look good in, per se, and not a game that I necessarily expected the Mercury, to look that good in, because they have lost quite a few in a row, and Diana Taurasi is still out, and they're still missing Bria Hartley from the torn ACL that she suffered in the bubble last year. So, a couple of shorthanded teams, but as we've kind of seen across the league, like unless you're the Las Vegas Aces, you're playing a lot of games shorthanded. So it's just something that everybody's going through at this point of the year. Right. But yeah, I guess the first thing that stood out for me from this game, not so much Amanda Zahui, but kind of the combination between her and Erica Wheeler. A lot of people watch Sparks, and the first thing that sticks out to you is that they're just super active on defense, right? We mentioned this last week, forcing turnovers at that moment, it was like 26% possessions. It has since gone down a little bit, but their offense is not the most pleasant to watch, let's say. Like it's not super complicated. They field a lot of defensive talent. Like that is the way this roster was built. It was supposed to be long, athletic, rangy wings. And that comes at a natural cost on the offensive end. So to simplify things, the Sparks, basically, when they need points, they just run high screen with Erica Wheeler and Amanda Zahui, and she can pop, she can roll, and Erica Wheeler can, size up against a big if they switch, or she can just go right into the paint and score at the rim. And I did not know this about Erica Wheeler before she came to the Sparks because, again, I will admit my bias to not watching as much of the Indiana Fever as I should, but really, really savvy pick and roll operator, Erica Wheeler. There's just a lot of options for her when they run that set. And she did this against Chicago a couple weeks back when, the Sparks were in a close game in the fourth quarter. They just put the ball in her hands, ran high pick and roll with Amanda, 3 straight possessions. They scored all 3 times. They did it again against Phoenix, when the game got close in the fourth. And it's just very fortunate for the Sparks that they have someone who appears to be their closer, who they signed to almost a max contract this past offseason, and it appears to be paying off so far.
Right. Fearless too. Fearless.
Yeah.
Erica Wheeler, who how to tackle this. There is a discrepancy based on WNBA, the stats box score that I was looking at. It said she had 13 points and 9 assists on the night, which is, well, it's wrong because as you pointed out, the what is the term for that? There's a copy of the
like the game book that they send out. Yeah.
Yes. And the PDF, those are available there, and ESPN and Basketball Reference. Everywhere you look, it's 18 points, 10 assists. So I don't know if that's a great look for the league, but what has been and continues to be a great look for the Sparks is Erica Wheeler just getting stuff done. I asked you this right before we started the pod. How tall is she actually? And whether or not you believe the listed height, viewer, listed at 5'7", but if you watch this game, she certainly did not seem like she was 5'7". She 2 offensive boards in traffic and just generally getting it done. Bodies through. There's this one play at the beginning of the fourth where things just sort of break down. Skylar Diggins-Smith deflects the ball from Erica Wheeler. She has to go retrieve it at about the hash mark. And Carly Samuelson is in the strong side corner. She just waves her through so she can go pick and roll. She goes right into the body of Sophie Cunningham, powers through and one. And that's exactly who Erica Wheeler has been based on what I've seen. Is just, she's very much the F it. I'm taking over. Nobody can stop me. I'm astounded.
Yeah. And I think it certainly helps to have a big, in Amanda Zahui, who is so versatile in terms of her pick and pop partner, because Zahui isn't just a good 3-point shooter. She's a very willing 3-point shooter. There are some bigs who theoretically have range, but just are not as comfortable launching at will, which confidence is not lacking on Amanda Zahui. So she will take that shot. And it's just such a hard pick and roll to switch because Amanda is so much taller than Erica. So you're at a size disadvantage if you try to switch and then your guard gets stuck guarding Amanda in the post, or if you put a big on Erica Wheeler and she's just a little too quick really to be contained by a big. I mean, I don't want to talk about the end of the game left yet, but there were certain instances where she was matched up on Brittney Griner and shows no fear, despite Brittney, I think, being a good 14 inches taller than her. Maybe not by listed heights, but certainly what it looks like when you're looking at the two of them next to one another. One thing that I really like that Wheeler does too, actually, is she's great at using the baseline as an extra shield. She'll just come through underneath the basket and sort of lose her defender who's just stuck. One of the bigs will just basically set a screen for her defender right next to the baseline so they can't get around her. And she just creates a little bit of space when she runs underneath the basket. She did that once in the first half and then kind of again on the very last offense play of the game. But she just has good tools, obviously a little bit smaller than a average size point guard in the WNBA. I know that was something that the Sparks were a little bit worried about with her and Tolliver and Cooper in the backcourt. They're all a little bit shorter than you want for your guards, but they get the job done. They really do.
Yes. And the 10 assists, some of them were, sucks the defense in, makes the easy play. Those are still assists. But we talk about it week in and week out. Chelsea Gray, Courtney Vandersloot, Sue Bird, Marina Mabry this week. The assists were just, I was really impressed. She had this one 7:50 left in the third. She is bringing the ball down and there's nothing going on, so she takes a retreat dribble and now she has the ball in her left hand, which you would not have been able to tell that she is not left-handed the way she scoops and whips it into, I believe, Nia Coffey. And
Yeah.
just the way she just delivers these off the dribble is not easy at all. And
I have this play in my notes listed as favorite assist to Nia, so I'm glad that we just went over that in detail.
Okay, good. Yeah, and I went through and I made sure to get the replays of it because it's even more impressive from the baseline angle. She kind of just, it almost looks like she underhands it. But yeah, to be able to do that off the bounce and perfectly in stride, you'll see Kia Nurse's arm right there. So if that is just even a split second behind, that's not getting through. And yeah, talk about fearless. There are multiple plays where she was just getting into the paint, again, almost at will, but there was a pick and roll in the second quarter where Skylar Diggins is on her and Brittney is on Amanda, and they just switch it. And most people in this situation would see if you can go somewhere else. Nobody, well, not nobody, but there are not many who would decide to go, Brittney Griner just switched on to me. Oh, this is my time to shine. Attacks, step back, shoots a jumper over Brittney's outstretched arm. Oh,
a nice teaser of what is to come at the end of the game.
Yeah, I'm not even, so that's the thing. I am going to give you the floor for the end of the game. I'll talk about everything but that. But there's another play. This is in the third where Christina Niguez sets a screen, and it's a hezzy, it's a sort of shifts direction, and then she drives right at, Bree Turner is digging in, but she drives right at Brittney Griner, and then it's a scoop drop off to Christina Niguez. These aren't easy things to do, especially going downhill at somebody like Brittney Griner. This game just impressed the hell out of me.
Yeah, one thing on Christina Niguez, because I was kind of harsh on her when she was with Dallas earlier this season, mostly because I thought Charlotte Collier should be playing more. But this is going to sound a little bit homerish because I'm a little bit more fond of her in this role than I was with her in Dallas. I do think having gone through training camp with the Sparks obviously helps Niguez be a little more comfortable on the floor because she knows more of what's happening with the Sparks than she did with the Wings. She's setting better screens now than she was a year ago with LA. And she looks a little bit more filled out, a little bit stronger. And that's definitely quite helpful because though I quibble with Derek Fisher's rotations in this game, he played Amanda Zahui for the first 25 minutes consecutively, even when Griner was not on the court. So like they were playing double center lineups with Niguez and Zahui. Strange look when you only have two bigs. I guess it ended up working out. But yeah, Niguez definitely more assertive in that center spot, making better contact. She was a helpful player, in terms of creating a little bit more space for Erica Wheeler. Not that she needs much, but a much better showing for her today or against the Mercury than I'd seen from her earlier this season. So kudos, Christine.
Right. Well, if you were going to serve that to me on a platter, I want to take this opportunity to talk about this Derek Fisher moment that it doesn't really mean anything. It's just something I like, and the joy of it will be lost for the viewer because there is no audio. But it's entertaining to watch at the very least. So
I'm assuming for you as a coach too, it's more entertaining.
That's true, yeah. To watch, hold on, I don't want to give it away. Okay, so 9:30 left in the game. The Mercury come down. They get the ball reversed to the right wing, right in front of the Sparks bench. Now, so Brittney Sykes is on Megan Walker. And like I said, Derek Fisher is at the Staples Center logo, and he's now pinching over to the bench. Now he's practically breathing down Megan Walker's neck. What I heard him say is no middle, no middle, no middle, which basically means he wants to completely take that angle away. But Brittney Sykes takes the wrong angle, and so you can see Derek Fisher go, and then
he's demonstrative, let's say.
I have a 6-year-old nephew. I've seen him get upset like this. He goes, and then he's just upset and he throws his arms up in the air. And I mean, ultimately, Megan Walker misses the jumper, but it's just the rage. I understand it from a coaching perspective, but to be that demonstrative, there are times to pick your battles, I would say.
You know, it's interesting because Brittney Sykes had quite a good defensive game, I would say, other than that inability to keep, Megan Walker out of the middle. And Brittney Sykes has some of the more disrespectful blocks, I would say. She has one on, God, I really can't remember who it was, but it was like at 62-61 in the third quarter. And she barely even like gets any lift. She just smacks the ball down like a volleyball spike and is so nonchalant about the whole thing, even though it cannot have been pleasant for the Mercury offensive player. But yeah, what I liked to see from Sykes in that game was that she was a little more confident in her offense than she has been for most of this regular season. I know one of the pull-ups that she went into was because, like you mentioned before the start of our recording, was that the Sparks were supposed to run a set that didn't actually happen. So she just sort of decided to go ISO, pull up, hit like a nice elbow jumper, and it ended up working anyway. But I think she had a good mix of her attacks to the basket and her pull-ups, because her jumper has not been great to start the regular season, and she hasn't been able to get to the paint as consistently as you would like to keep her, getting that defensive respect. So it's nice to see that she had a good mix of those attacks along with her pull-ups in this Mercury game, and then the jumpers going in obviously just makes life all the more easier. But the backup point guard Brittney Sykes experiment is still something that I'm intrigued by. I'm not sure if it's the best use of resources. At some point, I think it would be nice to see Ariel Atkins in that role, but she is very green as a rookie. Like, it has been tough sledding for her so far. So I understand just wanting the comfort of having a veteran like Sykes in that role. But yeah, great Sykes offensive game. And also, just speaking of Brittney's, like, we can't go this long without talking about Brittney Griner's footwork in the post. What a performance it was for her. Understandably against the Sparks, like we mentioned, a little low on bigs, but Amanda Zahui B's big center, Christina Nigue's big center, and there's just really nothing you can do when Griner gets the ball in the post because her footwork is so perfect. Like the drop steps, like the little turn and hooks. She had one play where she didn't really like her positioning, so she just threw it right back out to Skylar, got a little bit deeper, got the ball back, and then just went right through Zahui B on that possession. I mean, 30 points, 10 rebounds, like 12 trips to the free throw line. This was an excellent Brittney Griner offensive performance, and it's just unfortunate that Phoenix doesn't really have any way of supplementing her offensive production. Like, if Skylar Diggins-Smith is only getting you 15 points, I don't know where the points are supposed to come from. Brianna Turner also kind of invisible on the offensive end. We talked about her a couple weeks back in that Chicago game. I don't really know what she's doing on the court most of the time. Like, I forget she's there. I looked at the box score, saw that she played 34 minutes, and could not for the life of me tell you that she was on the court for more than 20 tops. Like, just kind of invisible there. There's got to be a better way to get use out of her. Like, Kia Vaughn has like an astronomically higher usage rate than Brianna Turner, and there's no reason for that considering the minutes that the two of them play. So cool to see Sophie Cunningham so confident. I always wonder where Alana Smith is, like, just perpetually. I'm just forever in awe of the fact that Alana Smith has not played more. But yeah, Diana cannot come back soon enough because somebody's got to help BG out. She's been so good, so good, and there's just no help for her.
Right. Don't know where to start. Yeah, Brianna Turner, I was also very surprised to see that she had played that many minutes. I make it a point to keep track of who is on the floor, what's working, et cetera, et cetera. Did not feel her presence at all. But if we're talking about feeling somebody's presence, just real quick, Brittney Sykes, just wanted to make sure I had this right. 5 offensive rebounds this game. That's more than Brittney Griner, who had 3.
Yeah.
And the difference is everybody's making a conscious effort to box Brittney Griner out to make sure she doesn't have second chance opportunities, because those are murder. But for your listed at 5'9", I believe, backup point guard to come down with that many offensive rebounds. It just gives.
Is this at 5'9"?
Yeah, according to.
That feels a little low, honestly.
It's I believe what happened is Erica Wheeler has taken some of those images. When
we get back to in-person interviews with the Sparks, I'm just going to take a measuring tape and start figuring these things out for myself.
Please do. Erica Wheeler, by the way, a pair of offensive rebounds. Just, if we're just talking about guards, just helping out on the glass. And I think that was the difference in the game. Genuinely, is I'll let you talk about the end right after this, but again, Erica Wheeler's just, F it, I'm gonna get this. You told me this right before, but they both came on the same possession. And what actually happened, the play that resulted in a score, was she goes right at Kia Nurse and she just gives a little forearm extension.
A little shiver.
Kia is completely discarded. She shoots it. It comes right off. She gets it, kicks it out to Bria Holmes, who hits a three. And the Sparks had a number of those offensive rebounds to kick out threes that, again, make a huge difference in the game. Just a quick shout out to the cameo that Carly Samuelson had to end the first quarter. She hit a corner three, and then her lone offensive rebound and her lone assist came on the same play where she shoots it. She shoots a mid-range jumper. She gets it. She kicks it out. Sparks hit another three, and just like the little stuff like that just deflates a team. And the difference was 5 points. And I'm talking about 2 offensive rebounds to kick out threes. That's 6 right there.
Yeah, stunning number of the Sparks offensive rebounds actually came on their own missed shots. So that seems like something that Sandy Brondello should look into. Just, make sure that the shooter is not the one deliberately getting their offensive rebounds. That Wheeler possession is just devastating because the shortest player on the court is getting 2 offensive rebounds on the same possession, and then you're letting Bria Holmes get a wide open 3. So, just a back burner right there. But yeah, I guess we can get to the end of the game now. It was a little back and forth. The Sparks were up in the second quarter. They took a lead in halftime. Phoenix comes all the way back in the third. They even take, I think, as much as a 3-point lead in the third. It's a 2-point game heading into the fourth quarter, a little bit back and forth. It seems like the Sparks pulled ahead, and then lo and behold, the Mercury come roaring back again. And then, like we mentioned earlier, Erica Wheeler just sort of decides to take control at the very end of the game because this is her responsibility on the Sparks, right? And we teased this earlier, the end of the game got a little weird because the Sparks were up 82-80, and then Phoenix fouls before the inbound. So the Sparks get a free throw and possession of the ball. So now they're up 3 with the ball after Tolliver makes the free throw. And so they have about 20 seconds left, but the shot clock is a little bit lower than that. So Phoenix doesn't have to foul. And Erica just, does that thing I talked about earlier where she, just drives right at the basket and sort of whoops back around to the other corner. And Brittney Griner's following her because the other defender got lost with the baseline as another defender. And Erica's just sort of sizing BG up. BG's got her hand all the way up in Erica's face, and Erica just shoots right over her. Game. That's it. I mean, it's exactly the position I think you want to be in as the Mercury, because you have all of that length in front of Wheeler. No other options really for her to go to because the shot clock is winding down, and she has to take a very tough contested shot, but she was just feeling it. I mean, I think this was the first double-double of her career, if I remember correctly. This is a big game for Erica Wheeler.
Wow. I did not know that. Oof. Erica Wheeler. Just wow. I don't really have much to add. It's just, you if you watch the game or you even just watch the highlights, she feels like such a force. Mm-hmm. Such a force. And I remember that Sky game that we were talking about earlier, I believe, or at least the home game against the Sky. She was mic'd up, and there wasn't, I believe you were in person for that. I watched it. I watched the broadcast of it. There wasn't a possession you couldn't hear her, whether or not they cut to the mic'd up segment or whatever segment you're calling it.
Yeah.
But she's just a presence that it matters that you can feel her no matter what she's doing. And again, throwing Brie Turner under the bus, like, if you're out there, you should be able to, as a viewer, you should be able to tell that the player is out there and not forget.
Yeah.
So yeah, just very quickly, unless you have anything else, I just wanted to show some love to Kristi Tolliver, who
Let's do it. We always have time for Kristi Tolliver.
Kristi Tolliver, just every kind of bucket that you want. Like, there's no reason she should be able to get the shots off. If you're just watching her and you know nothing about this is the Kristi Tolliver, you shouldn't lose her in transition. She should at no point, like, I understand it's a contest and you fumble the offensive rebound, but she shouldn't be getting a wide open layup like she's Usain Bolt on the basketball court. Like,
or Kalia Covert, let's say.
Yeah, yes. Much better comp. And then in semi-transition, she has no business being able to come down with Megan Walker's arm all over her face. Like, she's pulling up and there's no reason she should even see the rim, but she cans it. Like, Kristi Tolliver, the possessions where you lose track of her simply by her passing the ball and her cutting to the basket, that should never happen. I imagine we are recording this before the other Mercury. Wait, hold on.
Yeah, game 2 of Sparks-Mercury is tonight, yes.
Okay, so I wanted to make sure. We're recording this before the rematch. Hopefully, for the Mercury's sake, they have figured this stuff out, because to simply lose track of Kristi Tolliver is insane, because she makes really, really hard shots, and the easier you make it for her, the better life is for the Sparks. Like, you were telling me before we started recording about that one possession where she, like, I think is about to travel, where she kind of has the ball in the post off of a curl, and she's looking around, and she ends up taking a fall away push shot. And just in the fourth quarter, hey, this is Brie Turner. So she ends up with Brie Turner on her. She does the many ball swings, jab, fake, and then the beauty of the Sparks is that they have the spacing to go 5 out, so you have all that space to attack. But Kristi Tolliver attacks. She is on the right side. She is able to get to the paint and then takes a left-handed runner. It's art. It's art.
There was one point in the broadcast where I think Roz Goldenwude, who's the color commentator for the Sparks, she said, like, I would never want to play horse with Kristi Tolliver because she just has all of the angles you could possibly imagine. I mean, I got a chance to talk with her, before this game earlier in the week after practice, and she was saying, like, my role here is to score, and obviously I have to do a better job. And very much took that to heart, because I mean, she's like a career double-digit scorer, right? This is what you rely on her for. She's been that way since she was at Maryland, and it's been a little slow to start the season. Obviously, taking all of 2020 off is going to affect that, but this is the Kristi Tolliver that the Sparks signed, like the one who's making these kinds of plays. And yeah, the Mercury made mistakes in terms of letting her get open when she shouldn't have, but then she's also just doing ridiculous things like this. So
yeah,
hey, that's why she's a max player.
Yeah, just when you get a chance, viewer, if you are not actively watching the Sparks, I mean, Sabreena, it probably matters to Sabreena more, but like I don't really care.
There's 12 teams, you can pick any you want.
But my point is, just watch Kristi Tolliver. Just the way she gets stuff done it will blow your mind.
Certainly will spark joy, huh, Evin?
Get it trending. Wait, no, it already is because it's a popular thing. Okay. Just the things that get away from me. All right. What doesn't ever really get away from me are sets. So I think that's as good a segue as I can have. The Atlanta Dream, I promised last week to break down some of their stuff because we talked about their defense. And defensively, they have been very good. Offensively, again, if you haven't had a chance to, let me break down some of the sets that have really impressed me. Okay, so we can just jump right in. They played the Storm a number of times, but the one I'm talking about is when the Storm had their black jerseys and the Dream had their red. Don't know why I'm dragging this out. Okay, so the Dream played out of this delay set. It actually looks like it's set up as horns, but whether or not it's a mistake doesn't really matter. They come out in their delay, which is the ball gets swung out to the top. And then what happens is it flows into Chicago action for Courtney Williams. And this is very cool, it flows from Chicago to Spain/stack action, where Odyssey Sims is setting a back screen for Cheyenne Parker and Courtney Williams has the ball. Whether or not you're going to use that Spain action, it's a great way to get your post player great position. And that's exactly what happens here. Parker is able to go at Brianna Stewart. She draws a foul. But running horns, delay, Chicago, Spain, punch, which is some coaches use that as a shorthand for a post up. That's super cool. Wish I were a little more verbose than super cool, but okay. And it wouldn't be a cool video breakdown if we didn't talk about Flappy. So here they run Floppy, which is, I'll diagram it so I don't have to talk about it. Floppy into a ram screen. So a ram is when a player goes to set a screen to loosen up the player who is going to set a ball screen. So Floppy ram, and it shifts the defense over, and Courtney Williams doesn't need a lot of room, but she has it here. And these are a couple of sets they ran against the Mystics in that first matchup, the one that ended up being a blowout with Tina Charles, which is super weird, but that's neither here nor there. Okay, so this Floppy set for Shakina Strickland to curl right around the first one, and it looks like it's a look for a post-up, but then it continues to flow into a screen-to-screener, and then eventually Odyssey Sims gets a runner and one. It's not necessarily the set that, will light the world on fire, but what it does is it gets Odyssey and Airy and Courtney just attacking in space. So that's really all you want. And then the Iverson play for Courtney Williams, where she comes off effectively 3 screens, and then it flows into a side pick and roll for Tiffany Hayes. Nothing ends up happening here, but I just wanted to illustrate that we talked about Tiffany Hayes as somebody who has just the most dynamite first step. You have Tiffany coming off in secondary action after that Courtney Williams cut across, and now you have a side pick and roll, and just dynamite. And that's why Natasha Clyde has to foul her immediately here, because she can just go, and there's not a thing you can do. So when we get to a dream game, for the viewer, we decided to do this game. The game I was just breaking down sets from is the Dream Mystics, but we went away from that in favor of doing the Sparks-Mercury game because
a little bit closer.
Yeah. But when we do a dream game, I will break down more of their sets. So I'm gonna leave it a little light because, it would be better to give context and talk about these players a little more. So we'll leave it at that. Just watch the dream if you can. They're very, very fun, even without Kennedy Carter.
even without a head coach.
Yeah. Yep. So I guess the only thing left to do is to talk about what we are excited about this upcoming week.
Well, I think for you, it's watching more of The Dream, or is there something else you had on your mind?
Well, I'm just watching more games generally, but yeah, The Dream are so fun to me because, as I continue to say, I don't know what I'm going to see night in and night out from a scheme perspective. Are they going to blitz? Are they going to aggressively double the post like they did against Tina Charles? Are they going to throw you doubles out of seemingly nowhere just because they can, because they have the athletes to do so? Are they going to play 1-3-1, 1-2-2 matchup zone? What are you going to see out of them offensively? Who is going to go off? Because it's always somebody. And also, like, who is going to have the best block of the night? Which is a competition that they seem to be taking very seriously. Like Monique Billings.
Yeah.
I mean, Crystal Bradford even gets a couple where it's just like, holy, so.
And then Liz Williams just has the size in the middle to like just be a real deterrent too. So.
Right. So I'm looking forward to watching more of them. Sabreena, you?
I'm actually looking forward to watching more of the team that they played twice this week. Ariel Atkins has really drawn my eye over the last week or so. I haven't quite figured out what it is that's drawing me in about Ariel. Just everything seems to work. Like she just gets into it defensively. We talked about this earlier on our show. I think one of the first 2 episodes about how Washington just wasn't getting enough perimeter creation, and that is not the case as much anymore because Ariel is really starting to find her offense. Her and Natasha Cloud too, but just her ability to score like at all levels is really starting to come together, but like without losing any of that all defense grit that is really the reason why Mike Thibault drafted her in the first place. So I think there's just like something really complete there, and she's sort of underlooked as one of the younger stars in the league, but there's a lot to like with Ariel Atkins, and I'm just interested to see how it keeps growing. Like they can all put good games together, because like she had a really great game against Atlanta the other day, and that was because there was just a big gap without Tina Charles available. So yeah, I'm excited to see how it all comes together in Washington once they all start getting healthy.
Yeah, it's crazy to think that Ariel Atkins is almost at 20 points per game, and I don't really see very much mentioned of her. So, I mean, if Natasha
could Cloud she be an all-star, Evin?
If Natasha Cloud has her way, yes, Ariel Atkins will be an all-star.
Maybe she'll be on Team USA, honestly. I keep hearing her in that mix.
It's true. At some point, for me, it's reckless speculation, but for you have knowledge of this stuff. But I guess at some point we should make projected picks for both teams. So
yeah, something to look forward to for our watchers, I guess.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. No, I just nothing.
Yeah, well, that's our show. Thank you all for sticking around to the very end when it gets weird. We'll see you next week.
Bye.